Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on our programme this week, Iran develops 2 homegrown COVID-19 vaccines. The challenge now to convince Iranians to take the jab once it hits the market. Risky business. Dubai's doors remain open to tourists, with coronavirus cases nearly quadrupling since November. Plus, female genital mutilation in Egypt. We hear from a survivor who was forced to undergo the procedure as young as 12 years old. Thank you for being with us. We start with Iran this week, which is developing 2 COVID-19 vaccines. The country has also approved the Russian Sputnik V jab for use. However, there's little public trust towards the Islamic Republic's campaign to beat the disease. This amid efforts to contain a 4th wave, which has been dampened by the spread of the new variants.
Iran's celebration of the 42nd anniversary of the Islamic Revolution this month was accompanied by authorities hailing news that Iran's COVID-19 vaccine campaign had arrived. But the vaccine rollouts did little to reassure many Iranians, like Elham Girami, a university faculty manager eager to get the vaccine for herself and her family.
We cannot actually trust the news about vaccination. When we follow the news, we can hear a lot of different specialists that they talk about vaccination.
For Iranians, the uncertainty stems from a barrage of mixed messages by authorities, who first announced the banning of Western-made vaccines, then announced the purchase of a British-Swedish vaccine that has yet to be delivered. Now they're touting efforts by more than a dozen Iranian companies working on domestically made vaccines. At their sprawling compound just outside Tehran, the Razi Vaccine and Serum Institute invited reporters to what it called the unveiling of its vaccine. But officials acknowledged human trials could take months to complete.
This unveiling doesn't mean that this is a vaccine ready for the world to use. We need to prove that we've produced something effective. Until it's been proven, naturally, there won't be any trust.
To date, the only vaccines approved for use in Iran are 20,000 doses of the Russian-made Sputnik V, a far cry from the supply needed to immunize 82 million Iranians. Dr. Majid Mokhtari, a leading voice in Iran on the pandemic, says he trusts efforts by Iran's health sector to eventually provide an effective vaccine. But until he sees successful completion of human trials on Iranian-made vaccines or access to enough imported vaccines, it's too early, he says, to say which vaccine is best.
Iranians have very long history of vaccine production, but what vaccine, I cannot really, to be honest, I don't know how to answer this. We have to be patient, we have not to rush it.
For many Iranians, the truth about vaccines may take a while to decipher.
Now, while most countries have closed their borders to non-essential travel during the pandemic, Dubai has opted for a different, more risky strategy. Restaurants, shopping centres and beaches are well and truly open. That said, the traffic at the Emirates airport did drop by 70% back in 2020. Here's a report from our team in the UAE.
Dubai has made a high-risk bet during the ongoing global pandemic. It's one of the few holiday destinations open to international travellers. All passengers need to do a PCR test on arrival. If negative, tourists can then move around freely.
Toutes les activités qu'on veut faire, elles sont disponibles, quoi.
C'est ça qui est bien. C'est pour ça qu'on est venu ici.
The global tourism sector has been left reeling by the pandemic. But here, it's high season and business is booming.
In comparison with European countries like France, here we don't have any help. We've made the choice to keep the whole team, and without this freedom, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Dubai has even proposed a distance working visa to help boost the economy. The goal is to attract so-called digital nomads. This New Zealander chose to leave Berlin to escape the European lockdowns.
I know a lot of people who are living in as digital nomads in Spain and Berlin who are moving actually here because they feel right now it's better to be in Dubai than in those places where there's a lot of uncertainties.
Dubai has also given residents access to the vaccination campaign launched by Emirates authorities to lure more foreign workers like Neil. Around 3 million doses have already been administered since the start of the year. An operation made possible by the unique decision to use a Chinese vaccine from the Sinopharm laboratory. UAE health authorities say the vaccine is 86% effective, although objective scientific proof has yet to be released.
Our target is in UAE is to reach 50% of our population within the first quarter of 2021. Inshallah, in the future, I think this will lead us to maybe decrease the process of, more lockdown.
Public health choices like this cannot be discussed in this absolute monarchy. This economist says that Dubai's lack of hydrocarbon reserves explains the desire to keep tourism going.
It's extremely important for Dubai to be open for tourism. Its growth strategy is largely built around tourism, and its recovery from COVID will be crucially dependent on how travel and tourism recovers.
A policy that could backfire. Before end-of-year celebrations, cases were stable at around 1,000 a day. That figure has now tripled. In reaction, Dubai authorities have been forced to close bars in recent days.
According to the World Health Organization, 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation. Over in Egypt, those numbers are alarmingly high. That's 87% of married women between the ages of 15 and 49. Now, what is female genital mutilation? Well, it can vary. It can be the partial or total removal of the clitoris and labia. For some, it's the narrowing of the vaginal opening, and in other cases, it may even mean the pricking or piercing of the genital area. And it goes without saying that this can lead to long-term physical and psychological consequences. Let's now take a listen to a testimony sent to me by a survivor in Cairo who asked not to be identified.
I was watching everything, and my legs were wide open. And I bled 3 times. After I came from home, I bled 3 times because I was laying in bed and they told me not to move, but I was a kid. I wanted to run and play, and I kept bleeding. And I remember how my whole dress was covered with blood, as if it was a murder. I was 12 or 13, and, I had that operation. And I have always felt that I was incomplete, like there is something that I should feel and I have never felt and I will never feel because I'm incomplete.
Now, to learn about some of the reasons behind this practice, I'd like to welcome Dr. Reham Awwad to the program. She's a plastic and reconstructive surgeon and the co-founder of Restore FGM. That's a multidisciplinary center in Egypt. Reham, thank you so much for being with us. I provided some really distressing statistics earlier. Can you talk us through the state of female genital mutilation in Egypt today?
Yes, thank you, Sanam, for having me. Most people are actually quite shocked to know, including the people here in Egypt, that the numbers are that high. It is a widely practiced procedure done here in Egypt, most commonly due to the deep-seated cultural belief that this is something that needs to be done to all the women here to be accepted in society. It definitely is a massive problem, and we mostly see types 1 and types 2, and in some parts of Egypt we also see types 3 as well.
And of course, as we heard from one of the survivors earlier, there are many health risks associated with this practice. Can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, of course, the health impacts are massive when it comes to FGM. There are numerous ones, but mostly you have the most common ones are really pain and problems with urination, for example, when the urinary system has been injured during the procedure. We have, of course, bleeding and death and shock, as well as obstetrical complications later on. Most commonly, you see all these women being affected on several different levels. So it's not just the physical harm that's done, it's also the psychological as well as problems with sexual function. And that's the problem that we see most often with these women.
And a lot of them suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And Reham, what's really surprising is that in Egypt, increasingly, health professionals are carrying out FGM, despite the fact that the practice was actually criminalized back in 2008.
Yes, that's correct. Unfortunately, in Egypt, we have a very large percentage. Actually, the majority of the procedures conducted here in Egypt are done by doctors. It's around 75%, they say. Unfortunately, it, like I said, has to do with the fact that these people really believe, I mean, it's like I said, it's a deep-seated cultural belief here in Egypt. So these doctors perform it because they think that this is what should be done or what is necessary.
There have been very few convictions of those that have carried out the procedure since 2008. Can you now tell us about your own center and the work that you are doing today to help the survivors in Egypt and further afield?
Yeah, so we've opened a center, myself and Dr. Ahmed Saifuddin. We are the co-founders of Restore FGM. We opened this center because we realized the demand that, I mean, we have approximately 40 million women in Egypt who are victims of FGM and have nowhere to seek treatment. We basically have, our services are that we provide genital restorative surgeries. We also provide non-surgical therapies for these women, as well as, of course, psychological therapy, because it's very important for us, we believe, to take the woman as a whole and really try to heal her, because FGM affects her on several different levels, like I said, not just the physical level, but also the psychological level. Our only issue right now is that we're still trying to get some funding because most of our patients can't afford the treatment. So we're in the process of trying to get to be registered as a nonprofit so that we can get more funding for our center.
I really hope you manage to do that. I've spoken to a few of the survivors and they're really grateful to what your center does. Dr. Reham Awwad, thank you so much for speaking to us here on Middle East Matters about this important subject that certainly needs more attention from the international community. And that's it for us on Middle East Matters this week. Thank you for watching.